Hey guys, it's Annie here again, and I'm going to do a quick tutorial on how I'm making these athletic letters using HTV and applique on my machine. This is one that I had finished this morning for a customer, so I'm going to show you on, I'm using Sew What Pro. And I guess it doesn't really matter which program you're using because it's basically going to be the same concept in your program. But I'm going to use Sew Pro, and this is River Mill Varsity Diamond letters, I believe, or something to that effect. It's from River Mill. And on this one that I had done before, I did not use the River Mill. I used something from Jolson's, but I wasn't completely in love because it doesn't have a tack down, and I really wanted a tack down stitch, so I went ahead with this diamond one from River Mill. So I have my letter M pulled up, and the first thing I'm going to do is go to Tools and go to Add Border. And I'm just going to do Auto Border, and I have it set at 7 millimeters. And I'm going to add border. And click OK. It'll bring up a little border like this. And then I'm going to take the border, and I am going to, when it adds the border, it adds it in for the very last stitch. But I really want it to be the very first stitch. So I'm going to go to my tools. To edit, and then to order threads. And I'm going to order that to number 1. And just go down and switch all the other ones to the order that they need to go down one order. After I have that done, I'll click OK. And it brings that outline stitch to number 1. And then the tack down and all of the order that it's normally in. So from here, I'm going to save it on my flash drive. And there's a lot of steps to save it to your flash drive. I mean, mine specifically, I'm not sure. I don't know if that's normal or whatever, or if there's an easier way to do it. But okay, so I'm just going to add it to my flash drive, and it is all saved. So I will take my flash drive, and my machine is right behind me, and I'll plug it in and bring up the M. Okay, and it's telling me, what frame I'm using and such, so that's right, is correct. And there is the design, and I'm going to now hoop my stabilizer, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have my stabilizer hooped, and I have the piece of HTV. It is literally just a piece of glitter HTV, and I'm going to use a hand towel that was left over from doing a kid's hooded towel. So I just cut off a little piece of square so that I can do this video. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the HTV and take the very top part off. The plastic I can't do it one-handed. I'm so sorry. Let me do that real quick and then I'll show you. Okay, so I took the top layer off, and it's just the, usually when you use HTV, you take this off after you press. It's like the carrier sheet for when you're cutting, but we don't need that, so I just cut this into a semi-square rectangle shape of the letter that I'm doing, and now I'm going to pin it. Now we are pinned. I just pinned each corner, and just to be clear, this is the rough side of the HTV up, and the smooth side that'll actually press onto the shirts on the bottom. But you can see that this is the rough side. You want the rough side up. So now we will take it to the machine and lock it in. Okay, I have my hoop locked in on the machine, and then I will just adjust it to make sure. I believe I put it in the corner, but I just want to make sure that it's where I want it to stitch out. So I'll use my little thing to make sure that it's gonna stitch out correctly, which I already put it too high, so I should have just left it alone like I had done on the computer, but we're gonna just play with it a little bit to make it where you want it on top of the HTV. This will be for the border and the inside chenille piece, so you will need extra room on the sides. When I first started doing this, I completely forgot about the extra room on the sides, so I was putting my letters super close, and they just didn't, there wasn't enough HTV on the sides to actually press it down. So you want to make sure that you're leaving room on the sides, which is one reason why we put that border, because with this we put a border, so that will give it room for the HTV. And then the first stitch out is going to be just the border, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch that out real quick. I'm doing this in a pink thread just because it'll be easy to see. Usually I clip that. I stop it and clip it, but I'm not going to right now because it'll be fine. It'll totally be fine. We're not even going to use that. You're not going to see this border once we are completely done with this design. The border is simply there to show us where we need to trim and make that easier. Another tip for this is your backing piece needs to be tearaway stabilizer, not cutaway, because you're going to tear this away from the back. So you need to use tearaway instead of cutaway. I used cutaway on accident on this, but it's totally fine. I'll still be able to show you how this all works and all of that. But definitely use tearaway, because you're going to have to tear it away in order to press this down on your shirt. If you don't have the tearaway and you can't get the backing off, then the adhesive from the HTV is not going to stick to the shirt. Okay, so there's our first layer done, and now it's just going to give me the outline for where I need to put the chenille or the fabric or the towel or whatever you're going to use at this point. So it's just going to give me the border for that. Okay, if you can see, I've got, this is the border that we added, and then this is from the design, the actual font that we're using. So now we're going to use, put the piece of towel on top of this, and you'll want to pin it down really good. Because it's glitter and textured, it really holds it down, but you should still pin it down. So let me go do that. Okay, so now I have it pinned down, and I'm going to start the tack down. Oh, gotta lower my pressure foot. And it will just do the tack down stitch so that we can see where to trim. Y'all have to excuse my toddler. Apparently he was going in the other room. But this is a tack down stitch, and usually I do put a piece of stabilizer on top of it, which I will do for the next step. Okay, so now that this is done, I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to trim it very close to those stitches. Okay, so I have it off the machine. I took all my pins out. So now I'm going to use my little applique scissors and just trim as close to the towel as possible without cutting your stitches. You know, just like a normal applique. Because it is the diamond motif after this, so it'll go a little bit further past the actual tack down stitch, but as you can tell, it leaves a lot of like little fuzzies, and you don't want that after you're done with your stitch. So getting everything underneath the stitch is important at this next step, because you want it to not shed after it's done. So I will finish doing this, and then I will show you the next step. So now I have trimmed around the tack down stitch, and I will point out that this is a this towel is very, very thin. I want to say that it's probably the cheap Walmart one, just that costs like a couple bucks or something. I've tried to do this with a thicker towel like this one, and this one had like little ridges in it or something. It was too thick. It just turned out too thick, so I didn't like that. But these thin ones turn out really well. So just the cheap Walmart ones, I heard somebody say that they used the cheapest ones at Walmart, and those are really truly what work the best. Okay, so now that I have that trimmed, I'm going to put a piece of water solvay on top and pin it down. I don't want my stitches to disappear, so the water solvay will stop the stitches from going down into the towel. I may have put that one too close, actually. Let's pull this one out just a little further so that we can make sure that the stitches are good to go. Okay, I'm going to throw it back on the machine and do this last stitch out real quick. Okay, just took it off the machine and pulling all my pins out, and then taking the solvay off. I can tell that there's a few spots that I just didn't trim close enough to the tack down stitch. So I'm going to go back and trim the towel up some more, because ultimately you don't want this to be shedding after it's done. You don't want there to be little fuzzies falling off of it or anything like that. That's just not desirable. So the first thing is to get all the solvay off. which I know I can get it wet and do it, but since we're pressing it, I really don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm going to pop it out of the hoop. And this, I still have some salve on there and stuff. So take your scissors and trim up again any of the loose edges that that are past your stitches, so that everything will be tacked down really pretty and nice. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, and the reason why we added this extra border is to help you cut the whole design. So when you have the border, I can just take my regular scissors and cut right on the inside of that line, and it'll give me a perfect outline around the M, around the letter. I mean, this time we're using an M, but you know, any letter that you do, if you do it like this, then you can definitely just use that outline stitch, and it'll help you to know where to trim to give it the perfect border. And I did this one a little thicker than I have been doing them, just for the sake of, this is HTV, so you want it to have a wide enough border to where when you press it, it will adhere to the shirt or the garment of your choice. So you definitely want there to be a good enough border to adhere to the shirt or garment or whatever. So just trimming all this off, and you're left with a pretty good little chenille letter with a really good border that was super easy to trim out. Before I was actually using a ruler and tracing it out, and I found that the border stitch, and I was like, that's got to work better. So as you can see, we have a really great chenille letter. So on the back, of course, we still have our paper carrier sheet. So we're gonna take the scissors and trim off the paper, and you want to make sure that you trim on the outside of the stitches, not to get the stitches, because you need the stitches to hold your chenille on, or your fabric, or whatever you choose to put in the middle there. The fabric letters have been good for me. I've been able to use up some scrap fabrics and things like that, but I know these particular letters are pretty popular too. So they're pretty easy to make, and so basically I'll just go in there and try and trim as close to the stitches as possible. And when I do that, I'm not going to worry about the stabilizer that's still underneath the stitches, because there's so much of the HTV that is exposed. So now I have just the inside. So what I've done is I just take my seam ripper, and I just find one of the little holes that the stitches were in, and I just seam rip straight along that. But got to be very careful not to grab it. But there's like little bitty holes in the stabilizer where the stitches were made, and I just try and go in those holes as a guide to as a guide to know where to trim it. So we got a lot of stitches right there. So it doesn't have to be perfect. When it's said and done, there will be plenty of HTV showing to, but if you can see right here, and I just take my seam ripper and just go straight up as those stitches as a guide. So then you're left with that. And then the stabilizer is still under the stitches. I've honestly never had a problem with that. I would rather leave that stabilizer there than to try and pull it out and compromise the stitches, like stretch them out or move them in any kind of way. But as I've pressed these out, I haven't had any problems with them sticking, adhering, I guess, not really sticking, but adhering to the actual shirts. So I feel like this is a really good way to do it, and it really is pretty fast just to take your seam ripper through here and make the HTV, expose the HTV so that it'll adhere to the shirt. You can also use your scissors or whatever, you know, works for you to be able to get into those little areas. I did notice at one point that it was super easy for me to take the seam ripper and put it in and then actually grab the puncture through the HTV. If you can see, I just punctured through there. It's super fast. It happens so fast. So just be super careful not to do that. Not that you'll be able to see on the outside, but just be careful not to rip it like you are the stabilizer, because then it'll be hard not to adhere to your shirts or your items of whatever you're putting these on. So so you just trim off any of the pieces that you have, and you're left with that HTV here, and a nice little chenille letter here. And you know, trim it up, make it look pretty, whatever. And then this is this is how they come out. This is a smaller size letter. I can't remember what size these were, but this is a 2-inch. And I think these may have been 4 inches. I can't really remember. But this is on a medium-sized shirt, so you should see it goes all the way across. And, yep, so this is how I'm doing them. And gives me pretty good little letters that I can just heat press. I don't recommend this if you don't have a heat press, even though you can technically use HTV with an iron. Maybe for personal use, but I definitely wouldn't sell it unless you had a heat press and was able to press the HTV professionally for sale. So if you have any questions about this method, please ask them in the comments or email me or PM me or however you want to, and let's get those answered. And this is how I'm doing my HTV chenille letters. And I'm going to do a video next on how to do chenille letters with embroidery straight onto a shirt, so you don't have to have a heat press. I know a lot of us crafters, we have a lot of just random craft stuff sitting around. So, you know, like our little silhouettes or our cameos or our crickets with our heat presses and stuff like that, but not everybody got into all that. So if you don't have a heat press, I would definitely recommend doing the other method that I'm going to show next. But if you have a heat press, then this is a great way to do it. And it stays on the shirt very well. There's no, picking it off or anything. It's on there. So, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comments. Like I said, the next one I'm going to do is going to be doing these athletic letters straight onto the shirts. And if you like this, please, hit the thumbs up and subscribe for more, because I've got some more really cool stuff coming up. So, yep, if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks, guys.